The year was 1482, and the village of Oakhaven was a place where a woman's silence was considered her greatest virtue. Isolde lived at the edge of the woods, in a stone cottage that smelled of dried lavender and sharp vinegar. While the other women spent their days bent over embroidery or hushed in the back pews of the stone church, Isolde spent hers bent over the earth. She was a cunning woman, a healer who knew that a poultice of willow bark could quiet a fever better than a frantic prayer to a leaden sky. The trouble began when the winter stretched its frozen fingers too far into April. The cattle grew thin, and the village elders, men with hearts as hard as the frost, needed someone to blame. They didn't look at the sky or the soil. They looked at the woman who didn't bow her head low enough when the magistrate passed. "She speaks to the herbs," the magistrate declared, standing in the village square with a torch that flickered against the gray morning. "She refuses to marry. She reads books bound in leather that no honest woman should touch. She is a blight upon our order." They came for her at dusk. They expected a shrieking victim or a trembling girl who would beg for mercy. Instead, they found Isolde standing in her doorway, her arms folded, her gaze as steady as an ancient oak. "You come with fire because you are afraid of the cold," she said, her voice cutting through the murmurs of the crowd. "And you blame me because you cannot command the seasons." They dragged her to the town center, shackled in iron that bit into her wrists. The magistrate offered her a choice: confess that her healings were the work of the devil and marry the local blacksmith, a man known for his heavy hand and empty head, or face the cleansing of the pyre. The village watched, breathless. Her own neighbors, people whose children she had pulled back from the brink of death with her tinctures, looked away. Isolde stood on the wooden platform, the straw scratching at her ankles. She looked at the magistrate, then at the blacksmith, and finally at the women in the crowd who watched her with a mixture of pity and secret, burning envy. "You want me to confess to a lie so you can feel safe in your ignorance," Isolde said, her voice ringing out like a cathedral bell. "You want to bind my hands so you don't have to wonder why yours are so idle. I will not marry a man to buy my life, and I will not call God's plants a devil's work to soothe your fear." She didn't wait for them to move. She looked at the torch in the magistrate's hand, and then directly into his eyes. "If you light this, you aren't killing a witch. You are killing the only person who knows how to stop the rot in your grain stores. You are killing the only hands that know how to stitch a wound. Burn me, and you burn your own survival." The magistrate hesitated. The crowd shifted. It wasn't a miracle that saved her, but the cold, hard reality of her worth. A mother in the back, whose son Isolde had saved from the croup just a month prior, stepped forward. Then another. Then a father who remembered his wife's fever breaking under Isolde's care. They didn't start a rebellion, but they stopped the execution. They stood in a silent circle around the pyre, a human wall of debt and begrudging respect. The magistrate, seeing the tide turn, spat on the ground and ordered her banished instead. Isolde didn't argue. She didn't cry. She walked back to her cottage, packed her books and her seeds, and walked out of Oakhaven with her head held higher than the steeple. She lived the rest of her days in the high hills, free and beholden to no man, leaving behind a village that finally realized that a woman who stands her ground doesn't just change her own fate. She cracks the very foundation of the times that tried to bury